All right. Let's see. What's the date today?
It is March 6th. And this is part 2. If any of you watched John's How to Make John's Amazing Butter Coffee, this is part 2 of that, the following marital arts discussion.
Part 2, the Marital Arts Podcast with Jon and Tara Bachland. The mic should be good. All right. Get a little closer here. Get a little closer.
So I found some notes from a conversation of about a year ago. This is March 6th and of 2021, and the notes were from March 8th, 2020. And it's funny, it was more of a money talk, and we were talking about selling a car that we don't use as much. Cheers, by the way. Let's start with a ching ching.
Love you.
Love you. And so just a simple note was, yes, take it to the shop to, get all spiffied up and get a good, get everything ready so it's ready for the new owner. And a year later, it is at the shop.
And we still haven't sold it.
So if any other couples are like, why does it take so long to... But actually, it was good to have that vehicle. I don't drive a whole lot, but I got a paddleboard this last summer, and it was a good vehicle to just take the paddleboard over to the lake.
There's that, right?
Yep.
Well, I was going to ask you, so this is the...
This is really, really good. It has just the right amount of coffee flavor, because I do like a good coffee flavor, but it's not a burnt flavor.
Yeah. Well, the combination of the two coffees, like I showed on the video, it really makes a nice blend.
Were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you which marital art you're practicing today.
Do we have them listed? Do we have a list of marital arts?
No, I was just asking you which one.
The second one. Right?
Oh, yeah, you're a dork.
You're welcome. So that reminded me, having taken a year to finally take the vehicle in to get all checked up and ready for sale, is a lesson that has settled into me lately. Now, I'm a person that, I typically like to just, if we're going to do something, just do it, get it done right away. But what I've learned through business and life and stuff is sometimes when you feel like you're trying to push through something, let's say we haven't really completed the process of the car, but I can name a number of instances in business where we were trying to, or I instinctively wanted to push through a process of creating a course, but it wasn't really coming together, and I couldn't push through it with other people, and so just naturally had to let it sit on the sidelines for a while and remain on the list. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is, whether it's weeks or months, or a year later, or over a year in one project, when it feels like you can't push through it, it's for a reason. Like it is not the right timing. It doesn't have the right ingredients. Something else may come up where, I don't know, there could be so many reasons. And so I think as far as practicing marital art number 2, maybe that's patience and not being so like this has to be done now kind of thing.
Yeah, I figured it out. Sorry, I was looking up how to turn on the omnidirectional mic on our Tula mic. This podcast is sponsored by Tula mic. Tula mic brings a classic look to your recording experience. It works whether it's connected to USB or independently, like it's sitting on the table right now. And I just put it in omnidirectional. So if the sound sounds better, that's because Tara and I are sitting about 4.5 feet apart, and the mic is in between us, kind of at an angle. And so we're trying to make sure we get the best quality, and Tula Mic offers either Cartoid or omnidirectional, and that gives you the ability to sit right in front of it directly, like if you're doing a podcast by yourself, or to set it in the middle of the table to record a conversation amongst many people, like I just did. So it'll be interesting listening to that afterwards to see when it switched and see what it sounded like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, you used it the other day for a class that we were doing over Zoom.
Yeah.
And you're in a room that has linoleum floor.
It kind of gets a tinny sound in the room a little bit, echoey, little.
There's stuff on the walls, but it's definitely, what I'm saying is it's definitely not a soundproof broadcasting.
No, it's not a booth.
It's not a booth by any means. And it sounded really good. It was amazing that it didn't pick up, what a normal mic would sound like, or most mics, not even a normal mic, even a professional mic would hear all that.
Well, the Tula mic is a professional mic, and it also comes with a lavalier microphone, so you can put it in your pocket, and you can hook it to your shirt, and you can just talk. And lots of musicians use it because they can put it on a mic stand. It comes with a little adapter that pops into the bottom, and you can put it on a mic stand. And lots of professional singers use it also. Cool. Yeah. And it's computerized, so you can get firmware updates and that type of stuff. So the functionalities are awesome. It's got 6 or 7 buttons on each side for mic gain and the Cartoid and the omnidirectional, that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like you can stop and pause.
Yep. And you can listen through it too when you plug in the mic headphone. Yeah, so you can.
That's handy.
And it can be a monitor. Also, the headphone can be a monitor. So.
Well, it has a red button and a green button. I can tell that the green button is letting you know that it's picking up.
Oh, the green light. Yeah, that's level. That's gain level. So it shows us. It could go to yellow or red if it was too much.
Oh.
Yeah. So
handy.
it's really a good mic.
Great.
So it has also. I'm just looking at it here. It's got. How much memory does it have? Well, the other day when I hooked it up to my computer, I just plugged it in via USB, and my computer found it right away. I think it has up to 16 gigs of memory inside, and that's tulamics.com, TULAMICS.com. Go check them out. Everybody needs a good mic.
Yeah. Well, with all the online meetings and stuff, I mean, it just makes it more enjoyable. Even if you're not recording for like a professional broadcast or something, even if you're in meetings, it's amazing how much sound quality can make a difference on your ears. And some people more than others. I know I'm one of those people, and when I'm editing video, I always check the audio. I always adjust it so that like background hissing and stuff like that is greatly reduced, because it's when you notice it more so when you're done listening to something, and if it has that kind of hissing or just not as robust quality.
Pouring you some more coffee.
It's especially amazing this morning.
Geez, you're going to drink it all.
Well, I'll be really ready for cleaning and getting ready.
Well, like you said, even if somebody's on a computer, and sometimes computers can sound real tinny. Yeah. That's why I plugged the mic in the other day. My computer's really good, but I thought it was better with the mic.
Yeah. Macs are really good with their new Macs are good with their built-in audio. But I did notice the
new Mac Air has 5 microphones, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to cancel out the ambient noise in the room, and they're trying to cut down on any of the audio issues. Yeah. So it's really made for the new Mac Book Air is really made for. See, we got a little bit high on the gain there, so I'm going to turn it down a little. That was the rumbling of the washer. But the new MacBook Air. This podcast is sponsored by Apple. Did you know that the new MacBook Air has 5 microphones? It is truly the online video conferencing computer, because you bought one for Matthew for the Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
And it went from okay to spectacular.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's better than, some people will get like these cheap headsets and they're loud, but it doesn't sound good.
No, they don't have that bass, that little bit of bass. They can sound real tinny, and then they pick up the smacking. People smack sometimes when they talk, and a really good mic will not pick up those high notes, those high pitch, kind of sharp things. So, using all my technical prowess.
Yeah.
Sharp things. You got to watch out for sharp things in your
noises.
audio. I bet you an audio tech would say, yeah, we call it that too.
Yep, that's totally what it is.
Get rid of all the sharp things. The little pointy things when you look at the sound wave. Get rid of the points. Mm-hmm. Yeah, equalize it.
Peaks, maybe?
Peaks. They might call them peaks.
Maybe.
I call them points. Yeah.
Audio points.
This podcast sponsored by audio techs everywhere, because I know they'll critique me. So, you were using Marital Art number 2?
Yeah. Apparently that's patience.
Oh, wow.
I gotta write that down.
Here we go.
I don't know what number 2 or number 1 is, but number 2 is patience. So yeah, but it coincides with, maybe I'll bring some of our talk that we need to talk about just like for our life into this.
Yeah, well, that would be Marital Art, right?
It would be, and
maybe Marital Art number 1 is communication. Better write that down.
I'm writing it down on my iPad, because we're sponsored by Apple, and iPads are really great for communication. Are really great for taking notes. That's my iPad is for my yoga classes.
Yep.
I turn off notifications.
Yep.
And that usually works.
And then you watch a yoga class on
Gaia. Oh yeah, Gaia. We are sponsored by Gaiam. I think they have both domains these days.
Yeah, they do, but it's Gaia now.
But it's Gaia. Mm-hmm. So even way before this COVID lockdown, I think for like 4 or 5 years I've had a subscription. Totally worth it. I think it's only like $10 a month, and you can do like any class. They have classes of all levels.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is really great because, even if you're a beginner, although people have asked me, would you still
I have to go back and correct this. They are going by GaiamTV.com. GAIAM TV.com. GaiamTV.com is a proud sponsor of this podcast, because we have sponsored them for at least 15 years.
Quite a while. Yeah.
At least, and maybe even more.
But you can get there by GAIA.com also.
Yeah, GAIAMTV.com. So maybe they bought MTV.
MTV, yeah.
And they put it on the end of their name.
Why not? I would do that. Like buy multiple domains.
Yeah.
But I can invite you as a friend, so if you want, hit me up if you'd like me to just invite you, and I think we get some treats.
Well, Gaia will give you. What do you mean? I was the one that subscribed.
You totally
almost
were.
18 years ago. How do you invite me?
No, I'm
like, you're telling people. I thought you were talking to me.
Flip out.
I'm like a founding member.
Chill out.
Chill.
Do some yoga.
Hey, have some understanding.
Just
or patience. Aren't you practicing number 2 today? I'm not practicing 2. I'm practicing Marital Art number 1, which is communication.
Okay, I'll practice number 2. You practice number 1, and we'll balance out.
Right. See, I'm practicing communication without patience. And you're practicing patience without communication.
Well, we're compensating for each other, obviously. Anyways, I'll talk about them more some other time, but they have a variety of types of yoga, which I love. It has gotten me to explore different kinds. My current favorite kind of yoga is Kundalini yoga with Gloria Latham. And I also really like the fusion with Zain Saraswati Jamal. And
I don't think that's his real name.
That's her. Well, it's maybe hers. And then some of my favorite vinyasa are with Clara Roberts Oss. Robert's house. And just great. And of course they have Rodney Yee and
the king,
the king
of yoga,
of recorded yoga classes. So,
they also will give you a 7-day free trial, and if you can, in there, we should actually figure out what name to use. But if they ask for who recommended you,
they have recordings of Greg Braden. They have
you're
all
jumping
kinds
topics
of.
again. I was jumping topics, but now you're jumping back. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, docs and films they call them. Oh, it looks like
docs, documentaries, and films.
Yeah.
Not doxing films.
Oh, docs and films.
Yeah.
Looks like they have recipes too. I'll have to check that out. So okay. So back to patience and taking time and. Well, seriously, those yoga classes I do every morning, and it totally helps set my day. Like, I'm a person that, speaking of patience or impatience, I naturally want to get going right away. Yeah. Like, once I get out of bed. Maybe I'm not in a hurry to get out of bed, but once I get out of bed, it's like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And actually slowing myself down or pacing myself is probably the better term.
Yeah.
But with a yoga class in the morning, helps set the pace and the tone for my day. Whereas when I've been in habits of just starting with work, which is my tendency because I want to get stuff done, right? Is the yoga class really helps to set my pace and tone. So speaking of patience, and if we get onto it, I can tell you about a recent book that I listened to that was amazing to even dissect why that is a part of my personality. I'll briefly mention it's Molecule of More. So it's all about the dopamine molecule and how we are motivated and even the different ailments or diseases that are caused by a lack of or excess amount of dopamine, or even just personality traits and characteristics, or your political viewpoints can also be correlated to that.
So before we go down too far down that rabbit hole, getting back to GaiamTV.com.
Only had 2 ounces of coffee.
I know, here we go. GaiamTV.com. After your 7-day free trial, I want to talk about the price. So you get you get everything on Gaiam for $69.99 a month. So basically $70 a month.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Does that include their major programs? Because I get it for $10 a month. Do they have different levels? Are you sure that's not per year?
Yeah. Well,
gosh,
it's a year.
Wow, that's an amazing deal.
Well, let me tell the people at Gaiam something. I was about to praise that. $70 a month. I mean, so if you join a yoga studio, you're paying $70 a month easy, right? Plus, you have to gather up all your gear. You have to get in the car. You have to drive to yoga. You have to go in. You're arriving 15 minutes early. You're getting changed. You're walking in. Well, most guys will have to get changed because we don't run around in yoga pants like women do. So
you got to say hi to all your friends, give hugs.
Yeah. And
look at the new jewelry.
I'm telling them they should be $70 a month. Because think about it. You get up, you don't have to shower, you just throw your hair in a ponytail, you turn on your iPad, and you start a class.
It is different. I'm going to stand up for the yoga studios. It is different, but they both have their places. I do think that a guy could charge more starting out.
Geez, I thought it was $70 a month, and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to spend 3 hours going something. You do a 45-minute class in 45 minutes, and you're done.
Yeah.
And then you work from home, so you're right there. You can
pay me the difference of $60 and I'll manage our subscription.
You make your own money. Jeez.
And so the yoga studio, though, yes,
I thought you were an empowered woman.
You have to go somewhere, but it's also your cat isn't there hacking up a hairball. That literally happened to me the other day during my yoga class. Your phone isn't dinging. Your husband isn't coming up the stairs saying,
behind you,
hey,
going, I like that pose, baby.
Or that. And So there aren't the distractions. Okay, so number one, going to a yoga studio is like a little sanctuary where you know you're not going to be interrupted. Number two, especially if you're a beginner, and at any stage, but especially a beginner, it is really helpful and imperative to have someone monitoring your poses. You can...
You're right.
You don't believe.
You're right on
it's
that.
hard to believe, but you can get injured in yoga.
I forget. Being advanced practitioners that we are, I forget, while I'm laying on the floor and both my heels are behind my head and I'm doing a handstand. Motherfucker! I forget that people need basic instruction and that type of stuff. So I do agree with that. But if you are a total beginner, there are beginner classes on GaiaMTV.com.
I would still totally recommend them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have
It's a great way to get started, because then when you go into a class, even if you just watched a few classes, you would get an idea of what's going on.
Yes.
A few beginner classes.
Well, especially if you're shy. I know that that's a common thing that, people are shy. Like, I've never done yoga before. I can't stand on my head. Well, that's not the goal of yoga.
Yeah. And when you go to a yoga studio, like maybe Spirit of the Lake Yoga, this podcast is sponsored by Spirit of the Lake Yoga.
They're amazing.
Because we send people there all the time.
It's a beautiful location, too.
Right. So... But you would... And
what I love is they have so many props so that you can, especially like in a restorative class, you aren't trying to just make do. Okay, that's just it. It's a good side note.
Well, and when you do go to a class, it's your responsibility to tell the instructor what your limitations are. So if they say, hey, put your foot behind your head, you go, well, I don't bend that way.
Or I've had knee surgery, or I haven't done any kind of exercise for 20 years. Don't be ashamed.
I just had 3/4 of my colon removed, and I can't.
Something.
My butt hurts still.
Or they could, you can even say, I'm kind of shy and self-conscious about this, and they say, there's a great spot back here that is a good spot for you.
Well, if they're shy and self-conscious, I would say then you shouldn't be wearing the see-through Lululemon yoga pants.
They're probably not.
This podcast is sponsored by Lululemon and their see-through pants. Yeah. By guys everywhere.
Yes.
They love them.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I know. We have so many sponsors. I got to get through them all.
It's amazing we can talk about anything else. So, patience.
Yes. You're being very patient.
I'm remarkably good at patience.
How's my number one?
Your communication is awesome.
Yeah.
Especially in the things that you want to talk about.
I'm remarkably good at communication.
Yes.
Maybe not articulation, but communication.
No, you're very articulate also.
I try.
Yeah. You're particularly articulate.
You look like you need some more coffee here.
I'm running low.
Bring it over.
I have what's called my sippy cup. It's actually like a tiny espresso cup. What's the...
It's like an oversized shot glass. It's a Bodum.
They're glass. They're blown glass.
Yep.
But they're insulated. They have two layers. Air layer in between. And so I have what I call a sippy cup. And so I can have like 5 cups of coffee, but it's really like 2 ounces at a time.
Yeah.
Or maybe 1 ounce. 2 ounces?
It's probably 2.5 maybe.
It's probably like 75 milliliters.
Yeah. It's that.
Yeah.
Because we live in Europe.
Well, because they're made in Italy. Or they're Italian brand. Probably 100 milliliters.
Don't get me started on the metric system, okay?
Dude.
Everyone's going to say it's easier, and I'm going to say no, it dumbs you down. So, Bodum.
Yeah. Okay.
Bodum, BODUM.com. This podcast is sponsored by Bodum because we use their products and we tell people about it. And they love that we use their products for coffee. And we got some Bodum wine glasses the other day.
Yes.
That have the same...
I broke one.
Layered... That's okay. We bought a lot. And they'll make more.
Yeah. The ching-ching sound.
Oh, we got to cheers the Bodums here. Yeah. Nice little clink.
Yep. And they're clear. You can see.
And then we sip. So they insulate your wine from your warm hands. So the extra layer of glass inside insulates your wine so it doesn't warm up in your hand. That's so awesome.
And they're not on a stem, so you don't, if you're getting tipsy, they don't tip.
They don't tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to thank Bodum for making such wonderful products. That's BODUM.com.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're really nice.
I have one.
And you can put them in the dishwasher. Oh, that's what I especially love.
Oh.
Our other wine glasses you cannot put in the dishwasher, but these you can.
Yeah, I was looking at their vacuum brewing the other day. I just made the video this morning of making our butter coffee, how I make it, because several people are asking, how do you make that? And I'm like, well, the recipe's online. I do have a couple of techniques of my own, but I was looking at their vacuum. They call it the most fascinating way of brewing. So it got me all fascinated. So anyway, I was looking at it. So you could check that out on bodum.com.
Yeah, they're great. So patience. You're clearly practicing number one. I'm practicing number two.
Are you patient with all our sponsors?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we live in a very unique situation, I'd say, where...
Winning.
Totally winning. We actually... all of our businesses are in one location here.
Yeah.
We are above your business, which is a precision machining, manufacturing, micromolding company.
Micromolding, micromachining, and manufacturing company.
Yes. And
when I say micro, I mean micro.
Oh, so micro, like you can barely, you can't see the features with your eyes. You can see the part, but you can't see the features with your eyes.
Well, the last part we made, you can see the parts if you look very closely in a glass jar from underneath, and they look like specks of dust. And when you get underneath the microscope, they are a little arrowhead with multiple features and a hole in the back, a D-shaped hole, like a capital D. Instead of a round pin that goes in, we made a pin that looks like a D, and it goes in the back because we needed that flat area of the backside of the D to allow material to come in through the gate. And 2/1000ths, we took off 0.002, that's 2/100,000ths of an inch.
Like a sixth of a...
2/10,000ths of an inch.
A human hair or something? Or 1/3?
One third of a human hair.
Or half.
And that allowed our material to fill and not cool on the 8,000ths diameter pin that was in there. And the 8,000ths is the diameter of a human hair.
Yeah, only it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I hear about it on a daily basis, and I still have to use terms and references so that's 1/3 of the diameter of a human hair.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
So I looked up the meaning of patience, and you really are practicing this. This is our number 2 marital arts rule. Number 1 is communication. Number 2 is patience. So they go hand in hand. Patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay. Mm-hmm. Don't laugh too much. Trouble or suffering without getting angry or upset. So I think you practice.
Getting better. Because the angry and upset is different. It's not just waiting. It's not getting angry or upset. That is a very important distinction, I would say.
Yeah.
I just had someone, so I run a online herbal education site, and then we've just started up an astrology education site as well.
Oh, do you?
And so in one of our classes the other day, we do live online classes, so they're held over webinars, and we had a webinar glitch because everybody's deciding to do updates to their software these days. So not only the webinar company, but Apple had several updates recently, and then not everybody keeps their updates up to date. And so we had fortunately it was at the end of class, and our chat section just fell apart. We could no longer chat with each other. They could see my chats, but they couldn't see each other's, and I couldn't see theirs. And someone emailed me, and I get some really nice, especially nice to get the emails that are praise or nice feedback when you can't see people's faces. And she's like, you're so good at handling stuff when things fall apart. She's like, your demeanor, and you just take care of it. And I said, yeah, my oh shit meter has changed dramatically as I've done more and more of this. That problems, your scale of problems change.
Yeah.
The more problems you handle, it's kind of like the person with 6 kids as opposed to 1 kid. They're like, okay, Timmy fell down and scraped his knee. Let's watch him for a little bit, see how he handles this. That's the one with 6 kids as opposed to the 1 kid, running over. And that's not in every case, but I think that's true for everybody in life to a large degree. And so, speaking of patience, I said, my oh shit meter has really changed. And although I did essentially yell when I was on the helpline with our webinar company. They're like, try this. And of course, if you've been doing something for a while, you try the fundamentals, right? Like, I did this, I troubleshooted this, and I typed in all caps, which is just so if you don't know this, if you type in all caps, it is the equivalent of yelling. And it's hard to read, actually, I found.
Yeah.
I said, no, something is wrong. After they're trying to tell me to do all these things and update my software while I'm running a webinar, which I already told them.
Yeah.
Anyways, I am in a really chatty mood.
Good.
Coffee or not.
Hey,
good for a podcast.
I love talking to you.
Oh, well, you're so good at number 1, communication. And I no longer have to practice number 2 as much to wait to get my...
What's really funny is sometimes most of the time when I'm on my phone, I use voice to text. So every now and then, it won't say exactly what I wanted it to say. Mm-hmm. Or it's in all caps, because if I was typing, like sometimes I double tap the caps lock on my phone, and then I speak, and then all of a sudden the message goes out and it's in all caps, and people are always like, why are you yelling at me?
Why are you yelling? Stop yelling at me.
Yeah. I'm like, you little baby.
I don't know why so often when I'm typing a text, I hit the wrong keys like all the time.
On your phone or your
on
computer?
My phone, yeah. With my thumbs. Keys. And I don't have big thumbs. Like.
No, you don't have big themes either. You have tiny little themes.
I don't understand. And so patience and allowing time. And so I was talking about, how we live. And, we live a very low maintenance lifestyle. We have what we call the condo above.
Yeah. Above the business.
Above the business. I run my business from here, if I'm not on the road filming a herb walk somewhere. But there are some things that it's missing, I think after listening to this book, The Molecule of More, and about dopamine and how, we all have our different levels of motivation or how we're motivated, it helps me to understand my own motivations, and that actually the feeling of discontent, it can be a productive thing. That, as long as you're not just like complaining and wallowing in your misery, that feeling discontent, it actually motivates you to improve if used properly, right? And so there are some while we have a very fortuitous and great situation here, I look around, I spend like all day at home, I look around, okay, I'd like to put different flooring in that it would really change the lighting, like it's pretty dark flooring right now, and it's not a great quality, so like pieces come out and I think it creates dust, and maybe that's part of my own machinations in my mind, but I think of things that I would like to do to improve or change. But it's like, okay, when you get especially in the thousands of dollars range, it's like, okay, so how long are we going to be here, and how much are we going to invest in this place, and what's the point that you decide to make that leap and invest that amount of money, or are we going to plan on being somewhere else. And it's not about deciding right now, but it's knowing what are the criteria for making that decision.
Well, most of it's personal preference, right?
Ultimately.
I mean, I understand your logic about how much money do I put into it. What is my investment, right? Okay, am I gonna put $10,000 into this place and then I move in a year and then
right.
I feel like that $10,000 was wasted? Well, did you get the quality feeling out of it? Did you get the satisfaction out of it that you wanted to change it and you put it in, and even if it only lasted a year, that you owned it? You know, it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you had $1 billion, you wouldn't think about it. You would just change it. If you have $100,000, you think about it a little bit less than if you only had $20,000, right?
Right.
And if you have $20,000, you don't do it. You don't put $10,000 into something if you only got 20, unless it's going to be a return on an investment, right?
Yeah. If you're
it's going to be a business.
flipping it or something, or
yeah.
And everybody has their own level of what's comfortable for them.
Right.
You know, some people even with $100,000 might not invest or put the $10,000.
Well, but it's like me as a guy, I wouldn't do it. You know, I wouldn't change the flooring until it was so bad, or, you know, because we've lived here now for almost 3 years. Almost 4. Almost 4 years. 4. Yeah. And I don't notice it.
No, but then
I walk on the floor.
Yes.
You know, that's.
But I'm here a lot more during the day. You know, I'm vacuuming.
I'm here a lot more at night.
Good for you. Lucky you. So yeah, there's total preference, and yeah.
Excuse me. So what do you think about now? Now that you make good money, and what do you think about it now? How do you think about it differently than, let's say, we're a one-income household and you didn't like the floor, and you were telling me you didn't like the floor, and I was like, well, don't look at it, you know, and just walk on it, you know, and you're like, well, I would really want to change it. And let's say you didn't know how much money we had or not, you just assumed we had a decent amount of money. How would you think about it differently then versus now, with the money you make and the bank accounts you have and the things you look at and the taxes you pay and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I feel that I have more, what's the word? There's a very specific word for it, but I'm going to use the wrong word. But I feel that it just flashed through my mind. It starts with an A as well, but like I feel like I have authority over latitude.
Is latitude something you give somebody?
No, it's not that. It's but I feel like I have more of. So it's like. I'm going to bring it up again, but I brought my new vehicle into Toyota the other day, and I got the extended warranty, like the full-out warranty on it, which included a special coating for the paint and the undercarriage and stuff. And the freaking company, it wasn't Toyota, but Toyota sells their product, put an ugly sticker in the back window. Now, if it was a vehicle that you had bought that I was driving, I might not be as picky about it, you know, but when you pay for something, you're paying for it, you know, you take a different level of ownership.
Yeah, you're like, I paid you for that service. I'm not advertising for you.
Yeah, and
this
so
podcast is not sponsored by that undercoating company.
No. And, you know, Toyota did a great service in helping me to get the vehicle there to get it done, because we live over an hour away from the dealership, and so I'm not ratting out Toyota. But when I talked to the guy who deals with this coating place, he's like, oh man, you know, can't believe they did that. And he's like, yeah, bring it in and we'll have our guys remove it. They have, you know, and I was in at Toyota anyway, so I'm like, you know, can you have your guys...
They got sticky stuff remover.
Yeah, and can you just have one of your people remove this, please? And so what I was getting at is the more I have things that I'm paying for like that, there's a different level of that kind of authority, and like I'm making the decisions about this. You were with when, and I say we got the vehicle, and it's our vehicle.
You're like an unspoiled child.
Yes.
You're not a spoiled white girl anymore.
Right. Yes.
Irvin, did you hear that?
And I've always been willing to work. I just needed the right vehicle, so to speak, in that sense.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back to, so with my own money and considering that, well, you
just let your spoiled white girl out a little bit.
Did I?
I was always willing to work. I just needed the right job.
No. Our agreement early in our marriage was that I would provide value in our home.
Yes.
And that was my...
Well, you had 3 jobs when we were dating. And then when I was making enough money to tell you if you wanted to, you didn't have to work those jobs because we weren't seeing each other as much as we wanted to. It wasn't like we sat down and said, okay, here's the agreement. I'm going to work. You're going to stay home. It was an offer. And I said, you don't have to work as many jobs. And you quit one job. And then I don't know if the other one was seasonal or whatever. And then
I think the transition point too is I started homeschooling Justin.
Yeah.
And yeah. So there's that. The transition point, I was teaching ESL, and
yes.
It was the end of the school year.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah.
So that's the point of this conversation, because I have my own levels. And actually another comment that a question I was going to bring up for you. Me and you have very different levels of what we feel is comfortable level of savings versus spending. Mm-hmm. And so part of this conversation is also like, okay, how long do you see us being here?
Well, I think, so let's go back to the comfortability level. Okay, so I've been a business owner for a very long time, and I've always had businesses on the side since I was 15, 12, 13, 14 years old, shoveling snow, mowing lawns, doing that kind of stuff when I was young, and then working.
You should turn off that fan.
Why?
Because usually in the background you can hear...
Oh, I wanted the heat, but I can turn it off.
Oh, you're hot enough.
Listen to that. Yeah, baby. This podcast is ending right now as I carry Tara off to the bedroom.
No, you turned the heat off, but you didn't turn the fan off.
Oh, jeez. Now I'm not going to the bedroom with you. You're just correcting me all the time.
Well, I'm trying to, this microphone probably does a good job of eliminating... Well, I can hear it already. Can't you feel that?
Oh, geez. Between hearing and feeling, I don't know which one you're talking about.
Okay, you've run businesses for many years. And
yeah, so my investment level, my investment idea is completely different. Yeah. I buy machines that are well over $100,000. In 2020, I bought $2 million worth of machines and equipment. And so it's not... if I wanted flooring, I would just do it. For me, I wouldn't do the flooring because it's like a pain in the butt. And then I got to smell glue for the next 4 weeks, it's like, and so I'm a lot different in that respect, Mm-hmm. I don't want off-gassing chemicals in my house.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That type of stuff.
Well, I'm researching products and that kind of thing. But that is actually a part of it in my mind, too. It's like, okay, how much time do you spend finding someone to do it? The hassle of moving everything so it can get done. And that's what I'm talking about, is because, like, okay, if it's going to be a year and a half until we move and we just find a place that's more ideal, and you have stuff done before you move in, then you're weighing your headaches, right?
We're going to sound totally schizophrenic to people. We're going between business and house. And
no, but it's related.
I know it's related.
That's not... I heard in the book examples of schizophrenia and that high dopamine conversations, and we're bringing it back. And cat's claw is cut. Okay, go. Hey, it's okay.
No, yeah. So my thought, in business, just last week I spent over $15,000 just on consumables, so it's a totally different thing. But I need that stuff if I'm going to do the jobs I'm doing. So
that's another thing on my list is keeping it simple. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of it is, neither of us is like the home improvement type, as far as like remodeling. I mean, we'll do what needs to be done, I
could remodel the shit out of anything. I just don't want to.
Right. I know. Yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's we are much more focused on what we can build and do in business.
I even have all the tools.
And so you choose where you spend your time and effort.
Right.
And each couple makes their own decisions, that some may enjoy doing that kind of thing, and then they're having their coffee and then they're planning the next
most
project.
People tell you they enjoy it, but they can't afford to have it done by someone else, which I totally understand. I'd rather hire a master carpenter and a finisher to do stuff than do it myself. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't have the money and it had to be done, then I would do it myself, because I would save thousands of dollars in labor. But during the time I was doing it, I wouldn't be working, so I'd lose tens of thousands of dollars not working. So it doesn't make sense in that respect to do it myself.
So to answer my own question, and part of your question when you're saying, well, you make your own money now, and granted, I do give you a lot of credit in the sense that, what I make money at was originally your idea. I put in the daily work with it, but you are a terrific board member and
I bring the wood.
CTO kind of person and the idea person. And so to me, the answer to this question is we look at things like midsummer. So it's March right now. So maybe not midsummer. Let's say like, I kind of think of it in like pay cycles too. Like I do quarterly payments for our business, for my business
payouts. You talk about when to do the flooring?
When to make the decision.
Oh.
Because, like I mentioned, each of us has our own level of comfortability of at what point, someone might be okay spending $10,000 when they have $20,000 in the bank. Or not just in the bank, but allocated to something like that. But
it depends on how much flow you have. If you have an income stream, you can plan it a lot easier. But if you have just a job where you make $800 to $2,500 a week, whatever it is, $5,000 a week, you are limited. But like with my business, I can get $1 million PO next week, and it's likely, that I'll get something very big. So I'm more comfortable spending more money. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm still a banana. I'm still within a budget, because you can only spend what you have. That's that's a good conversation between me and you. I've always told me to budget, and you should have a budget, and I go, I do. I got X number of dollars in the bank. That's all I could spend.
Well, you do.
That's my budget.
You do manage very differently, and I'd say you are intermingling business and personal are overlapping a lot. And I'm talking about monitoring, because I do have an income flow, but it can go up and down. It's going up, thankfully, but that is knock on wood. And so to me, it's how much am I then taking personally, putting our personal account. You tend to meld those two a lot more.
Nah, not hardly at all. Totally.
And so that's, I'm answering my own question in the sense like, okay, let's
here we are doing this podcast. We're talking about business.
Yep.
So we're always doing business.
We tend to have a tendency,
really, because
totally.
we should do a marriage talk, like on the next Marital Arts podcast, about what marriage is. Let's keep going with what we're doing now. But
So, yeah, the question is answered. I mean, clearly me and you prioritize things differently. And maybe that's something that, you know, I mean, we've been married 20 years, but, you know, you still learn and develop along the way. It's, you know, since I appreciate and value maybe more of our living circumstances, that, you know, maybe more of my money goes to something like that. Mm-hmm. And you value, well, I mean, I totally value our savings and that kind of thing. But you're more likely to put more into that than, you know, I tend to budget. Like this is how much we can allocate to this, and this is how much to that. And yeah, we're still working it out over the years. But our circumstances are changing. I think it's easy in a sense when you have set circumstances, like this is how much you make per week, this is how much our bills are. But with both of us running businesses, that can change on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
It does change on a weekly basis. Like you said, you just spent $15,000 on cost of goods, it sounded like, or consumables.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that makes, I was recently, a couple months ago, part of a business and tax webinar. I took a class online, and the presenter was saying, you know, ideally you have, he's like, he encourages entrepreneurialism, but that you have at least one person out of the couple that has a standard job, you know. And it sounds like that's pretty typical. It's extremely rare to have both people be entrepreneurs, and it takes that type of person to understand that kind of person too.
Right. Well, you can't. I mean, you know, it's this whole entrepreneurial thing. Everybody wants to be, you know, an entrepreneur, but they don't understand that you should be, you know, you're going to be everything. Like, I'm the janitor. Like, you know, there's a mess. The other day we had a mess on the floor, and I go over there. No, I'm the business owner, right? I go over there, and the first thing I do is grab we have these pads. They're called pig pads. They soak up oil and water and whatever, right? So I grab the pig pads, and I go over there and I lay it down, and my guy's over there and he's working, and he's like, thank you. And then I come over with a mop and a bucket and I'm cleaning it up. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want him to stop working to clean, right? Yeah. We've got due dates, deadlines. We're trying to get a certain amount done during the day. We're trying to set up machines so they run overnight, this kind of stuff. And so that's an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. That's an entrepreneur. Everybody thinks, right? Everybody thinks they're going to be an entrepreneur and they're going to be bossing a bunch of people around and telling people what to do, and that's not it. Those kinds of people that are thinking about entrepreneurship are not entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. You do not have to tell an entrepreneur anything. They do everything. They get everything done. If they don't know how to do it, they figure out how to do it. They read a book. We used to read books on learning how to run software. Now you can watch YouTube videos. We used to, you know, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go study with somebody, be an apprentice, or you had to get a book from the library. You know, and now it's so easy. It's so easy to learn anything. And entrepreneurs, they don't even tell you. They don't tell you they're watching 10 videos a day. Mm-hmm. They don't brag about it. They just do it.
Yeah, it's part of your day.
Right.
Yeah, you had these 5 things scheduled, and then 2 more things came in.
Yeah, 3 things got canceled, 5 things got rescheduled, 10 more people called, and at the end of the day, you come home and you just want to look at your lovely wife and talk to her. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah,
and you end up talking about business, which always happens.
Not saying that all entrepreneurs are men. There are lesbian entrepreneurs too, so they go home and look at their lovely wife and talk to her too. Yeah.
That comment was sponsored by Jon.
Sponsored by the Equal Offending Club of America.
Yes. Headed by Jon.
I did not organize that group.
So, yes. And maybe getting back to so that's what makes it the entrepreneur is a very different type. So some people might, based upon my earlier comment, when do you remodel? When do you put money into that? Some people might think, well, that's pretty easy. You just allocate it in your budget. And as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have a budget. And I do understand more and more the comments that you've made over the years when I'm like, can't we just budget this? I mean, I think you can. But each business is different also, and it's going to have its own flow of budgeting. And, I monitor things on a weekly and a monthly and a quarterly and a yearly basis. They each have their I do my different assessments at those different levels. But the idea, too, is like, okay, we don't have solid plans of whether we're going to be here for 8 more years or 8 more months, that could change. We both talk about let's talk about renting versus owning, and
if I could rent our dream house, I will.
Well, the more and more,
it doesn't make any sense to own your dream house. I mean, let's just look at the last year, right? Look at the riots that happened in Minneapolis, and look how many tens of thousands of people are moving out. Anybody with money is moving out. So we know of a couple who is moving out of a nice suburban area that actually made money in their last year. They've only been in the house for like a year and a half. Yeah. Sold it recently for like 70. They put it up. They put it up for sale for $640 because they wanted $620, and they wanted some room to negotiate, right? And they had a couple people bidding on the house, and it sold for over $740. So they got an extra $100,000 because people were trying to get out of Minneapolis. Now that's unique, because if you're in Minneapolis, happening everywhere. Well, it's unique in the sense that if you're in Minneapolis, you're probably not having people have bidding wars on your. It depends on location. If you're selling a house in Minneapolis right now, that's what I mean. You're over the barrel. You're screwed. Yeah. So if you're in the right location, nobody wants to be down there. If you're in the right location, no matter where it is, this was far enough out in the suburbs. It was outside of the suburbs, basically. This is the real estate game, right? Yeah. It's timing and location. Yeah. And so maybe, it's a unique, fortuitous circumstance that they've been in the house for a year and a half and made $100 on it. Right. And so in a downtime when incomes are down, when jobs are down, when everybody's been locked down for a year. So from what I understand, so if you get a typical mortgage, you are going to pay like twice as much for the house. 30-year mortgage, you put 10 or 20% down. So even if you stay in the same place for 30 years and pay it off, you're paying twice, not including all the home improvements, the roofs you have to put on over the years, twice, 2 or 3 times, let's say, in that time period. Right. Any improvements, property taxes. Yeah. And so there's got to be a minimum amount of time where you have to spend in a place to recoup. Yeah, well, let's say you buy a house and let's say your mortgage is $2,500 a month. I would rather rent for $3,000 a month. Because if the roof goes, they replace it. If a storm comes through and takes siding off, they replace it. If the furnace goes, the owner replaces it. If the air conditioning goes, they replace it. If there's some zoning laws change and property tax goes up, they can only burden me via our contract with that raise in property taxes a certain amount each year. Yeah. So it's a business mindset. Owning a house is a business to me, or renting. And a house is not an asset. People have been sold a bill of goods. They think it's an asset because they can, I'll get an extra home mortgage and then I can buy a camper or something like that, which is ridiculous, But that's the only thing they have. They don't have the ability to. Yes, I just checked the chamber on one of my guns. But people don't have the ability to get something without an asset, without leverage, because they have a job, they make, whatever it is, $1,700 a week, and they want more in their life than $1,700 a week. I mean, if somebody made $1,700 a week and they rented a small house in an older neighborhood, for 20 years, they could have $1 million in the bank on savings. Mm-hmm. They could save a ton of money. And then by the time they're 60, they could retire. And if they did some investing, some light investing, and got into some of the right things, paid attention to technology, and got out when it was profitable, instead of waiting till it drops, they could have a couple $1 million for their retirement. And if you live a modest lifestyle, all you really need is a couple $1 million to retire. You could probably do it on less.
And it really depends on what kind of lifestyle you want. Mm-hmm. And so this Nerd Wallet, which I like for other things too, because they have neat calculators.
Nerd Wallet.
Yeah,
Do we have a new sponsor?
Maybe. They might be a little stingy though.
Yeah, we don't want an accounting firm for a sponsor.
Okay, so let's look at.
You'd go like this. This podcast is sponsored by the accounting firm, and that's all they paid for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do an example here. Interest rate.
Tara is currently on her iPad.
Yeah.
Looking this stuff up. I cleared my Walther PPQ.
Okay. So here's an example. An area that we both really like in Minnesota, although just for the record, I don't plan on living in Minnesota through the winters for the rest of my life.
Oh, you want to be a snowbird?
But one really beautiful area in Minnesota in the western suburbs is Minnetrista. So there's, beautiful horse country, minimum 5-acre lots. And in Hennepin County, so the taxes are more. I put the home price at $750,000 because you're not going to get anything pretty decent except for maybe $600, but I put $700. I put a down payment of $100,000. That's 13%. A mortgage interest of 5.75, and a loan term of 30 years. So then they have a graph that compares that monthly cost. So renting comparatively to buying. Now, the thing is, you're not going to easily find something as great to rent either. So, the renting market needs to be good. But they're saying that right away, renting is going to be better than buying because you're not putting out all that money. But after 29 years, buying puts you at almost $1.3 million, whereas renting is $442,000.
Yeah.
For that area.
Yeah, and most people won't know that because all they've been told is owning a house is a good investment, and that is such a lie. It's such a lie.
So, and then at the bottom it says all the things that it includes. For home buying, the rent versus buy calculator considers one-time costs, closing costs and the down payment, and ongoing expenses like property tax and HOA fee, home insurance and private mortgage insurance, or PMI, which you pay if your down payment is less than 20% on a conventional mortgage. It takes into account typical spending on home renovations and maintenance, so that's good. The result assumes you'll deduct on your taxes the cost for mortgage interest, PMI, and property tax, and that your marginal income tax is 25%. You can adjust all of those pre-filled areas. The rent versus buy calculator also accounts for the accumulation of equity from mortgage payments and the effect of growth or decline in home prices. It factors in any long-term capital gains and also bakes in the opportunity cost of using savings for a rental deposit and a down payment instead of investing the money. So that's a big part of the consideration also. So it sounds like they were really factoring in and doing a good side-by-side comparison. Yep. Because let's say after 30 years, especially in that area, that's still a desirable suburban area. Mm-hmm. Are they subdividing properties at that point? And so the values just go up tremendously.
Yeah.
And And so are you, even though you've spent $1.3 million over that 30 years, are you able to sell the property for at least twice as much as what you paid? And that depends too, how much of that is inflationary costs. You think that you sold it for twice as much, but really inflation over the last 30 years went up 300%. And so actually you lost, you didn't sell it for twice as much, you sold it for 1/5 less because of inflation.
Yeah.
And what if you put that money elsewhere?
And what is it like after 2 presidents in a row take over $4 trillion each out of our...
John. Yeah, totally.
What's your money worth now?
Well, and then, so what if you keep bouncing around and renting places, and instead of spending that money on home improvements and so forth, you're putting that into a business or investments? Now, granted, if you own a place, then your mortgage remains the same. So if you're renting, your rent will typically go up more in proportion with inflation. So the advantage of a mortgage in that sense is that you're locked in that pre-inflation or that current inflation cost.
Yeah. Well, if we just do a simple calculation, and this is probably really boring for most people, but if we just say, let's say 6 hours a week, that's 312 hours a year. Okay?
6 hours a week?
It's 312 hours a year.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So let's say you own a home, right? And you are maintaining, mowing, cleaning, doing whatever you're doing, situating your garage every week, going out, doing all this stuff 6 hours a week, right? Between, tightening doorknobs, changing furnace filters, which you got to do if you rent anyway most of the time. Just general maintenance around the house, 6 hours a week, right? Because if you don't do it, you're going to have stuff falling apart and all that kind of stuff. So it's 312 hours a year. What can somebody do with that, right?
A heck of a lot.
Oh, yeah. You could find multiple businesses to run. And then you could have a home office, which is a write-off. So you're writing off part of your rent. You can have a party for your customers at your rented house, and you can write off that party. So technically, you're writing off part of your rent. If people understood taxes, tax code, they could really understand business and how it's so beneficial. There'd be a lot more entrepreneurs, but they don't teach this, right?
Yes.
Nobody teaches this. The public school system doesn't teach it. College, well, we go to a college, I won't say the name because I don't want to disparage them at all, but we have spoken at a college 5-6 times to the entrepreneurial class, and they don't allow the kids to take an entrepreneurial class until it's their senior year. Yeah. Why is that? The college might say because we need to educate them, but the entrepreneurs will say because you don't want them to know that they don't have to go to college to be successful in life. In fact, you're statistically less likely to be successful if you go to college.
So I've been playing with some numbers. You can change a lot. There are more options, so you can allocate more for like home repairs or homeowners insurance. So you can change, or like your marginal income tax rate. So maybe like I just put in Naples, Florida, and they don't have a state income tax, but you pay federal, I believe. So if we decrease that amount, even if you put, so this proves what I was talking about before, that if you have a mortgage at all, you're going to pay so much more over time. Let's see what the mortgage rate is today. I'm going to put in that number. Let's see. 3.2%. So let's put that rather than my whopping 5%.
Well, since we've been drinking coffee, I don't want to get too off on too boring topics.
No, but let me finish this. This is really interesting. Okay. So this is nerdwallet.com, rent versus buy. So I put in Naples, Florida. I don't know if the location really changes things too much with the data, but I put in a home price of $600,000 with a down payment of $550,000. So you're basically you're mortgaging $50,000 at a 3.2% interest rate for 30 years. And again, they're factoring in 0.46% homeowners insurance, 0.5% of home repairs, 0.5% renovations. They're factoring in your marginal income tax rate and comparing it to if you had renters insurance. They have selling, closing costs, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So still, if you put 90-some% down on a mortgage from day one to last day of the 30-day mortgage, 30-year mortgage, your rent would be $461,000 and your buying would be $884,000. Now that's comparing a rental rate of $1,200 a month, which you can't get much for that, and a buying
depends on where you live.
A buying of $2,400 a month.
Right.
So I'm going to see if I can change that somewhere because that's not really realistic.
I'm going to jump to a different topic here.
Go
quick.
for it.
So the Colombian CC.
Yeah.
That's COLO for Minnesotan. COLOMBIAN CC. The Colombian CC. That's Irvin's handle on Instagram. Mm-hmm. That's where we get our coffee direct from Colombia. I'm going to read this. It's going to sound like self-aggrandizement, but it is. Mm-hmm. Irvin says, the Colombian CC, a huge thank you to @Jon Bachlan, which is my Twitter, or my, not my Twitter, well, it's my Twitter handle too, but my Instagram handle, @Jon Bachlan, for ordering 46 pounds of the mid-January harvest. And that's what my last coffee shipment was 46 pounds of coffee from Colombia. The coffee left Bogota on Thursday, arrived in Hutchinson, Minnesota on Monday. That's 3 business day transit. Yep, was awesome. I get the freshest coffee in the world. You don't even get it that fresh if you go to your local co-op. Mm-hmm. John sent the second picture when he received his order. Very fast, very competitively priced. Yeah, it was awesome. Besides this order, there are 1,000 things to thank John for. He has been a great mentor, a teacher, a friend, and was the person who believed in me and invested and helped me get CCC off the ground in the first place. Most of all, John is perhaps the most genuine, hardworking, and caring person I know. Thank you. Wow. So that's always nice, right? To see that kind of stuff. We met Irvin when we were at a college talking to the entrepreneurial class, and we had seen him a couple times because we had been there a couple years, 2 years after we first met. He sent me an email and said he would like to talk to me about a business plan. Mm-hmm. And so, excuse me, I sent my email back. I said, make sure you have a 3-year plan drawn up. I want to see the costs. I want to see any kind of profit you think you can make in the first year. I want options. I want options on the side, or what is this business going to do centrally? What can it do peripherally? And it took him almost 3 months to write that up. It was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And he called me on the phone, and he's like, oh yeah, he actually called me first before we emailed, and he said, I'd like to talk to you about a business. And he was like hemming and hawing, and I'm like, just spit it out, man. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I'd like to import coffee into the United States. And I said, well, good. I said, what does that entail? And he told me a bunch of stuff, and I said, so I would start the import business, you would start the export business, and we'd bring in the coffee. And he started describing it, and I was like, what? You got to be kidding me, because we knew that he was from a tribe, and he's an indigenous person from Colombia, and he's an indigenous Colombian, and he's from the NASA tribe, NASA, which means the people in NASA. Mm-hmm. And they have a language called the NASA language, and he just described the coffee, and I was like, holy crap. And me and you got real excited about it. I got you excited about it, probably. And
you're using your number one communication skills.
Marital arts, number one skill, communication.
Yeah.
And then we started the business. We went to Colombia. We met the tribes people. We met the coffee growers. We went up in the mountains. We drove on the world's most deadly roads.
Oh my God.
And had a lot of fun.
I think I've finally recovered from that.
Yeah, we're going next month. Again. As soon as you recover, it's time to go back. So, yeah, so it was a real adventure, real fun time. We did start a coffee company. We bought a roaster here, put it in our shop in Minnesota, and set out a little coffee area, and we roasted coffee for a while and distributed it. Mm-hmm. And he would come out and roast up 150 pounds and then sell it. And then his visa ran out, so he ended up going back to Colombia. And since we were selling the specialty small batch coffee from the NASA tribe, then people in Colombia wanted it because they saw it was selling in America. And so that really jump-started his business in Colombia. So yeah, he's a great guy, very reliable, on top of things, and very impressive person. So it was a lot of fun. Still is. So that's the coffee we're drinking this morning.
Some great dinners together, and you guys had some good adventures as well.
I get that coffee delivered for $10 a pound. Now, there's a strategy. You buy a certain amount, right? That's why I was going to buy 50 pounds, but he didn't have a couple of the ones that I wanted. So I got 5 different varieties of coffee, got 46 pounds, and I got it for $10 a pound, delivered from Colombia in 3 days. And it was roasted about the week before. So that's like fresh from the top of the Andes Mountains, the highest altitudes that coffee is grown at.
Well, it's like the freshest you're going to get.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Literally, like from harvest time to, well, it has to be fermented. There are processes.
Yeah. Dried, fermented, cleaned, all washed, all that stuff.
The cat sees a bird.
Sorry, he's looking at the woodpecker. Yeah, we got a bird feeder right outside the window there, so the cats are always have wildlife TV.
I called that their Animal Planet TV. It's great. We have a little ledge for them that Kitty Dada put up.
It's a little shelf.
Yeah. A shelf that attaches to the wall so it doesn't have anything underneath.
It's a cat shelf, yeah.
Yep. So going off of what we were, so obviously, clearly, for some people, buying is the ticket. You know, this NerdWallet really has this figured out. I'm not going to go on numbers forever. Someone's appreciating this. Someone's appreciating this.
NerdWallet needs to sponsor this.
They're, maybe, I don't know. They're doing a good job, though.
What is it, nerdwallet.com?
Yeah, they factor in so many things. If you go
to nerdwallet.com, please tell them that the J&T Marital Arts podcast is talking about them.
Mm-hmm. I forget what else I've used them for, but they have great calculators. But what I love is that they're actually figuring in the stuff, like they have inflation here, rent appreciation, they have renovation percentages that you can change.
Yeah, I bet their inflation is way off.
I'm sorry that I'm getting into numbers again for those of you who don't care about that. But my other topic that transitioning out of this is keeping it simple. So we were talking this morning about ZZ Top, and you're like, it's just 3 guys with 2 regular guitars and a drum set. I'm like, there's a bass in there. And so that topic aside, yes, there is a bass.
Yes.
I was like, but it's like, that is so the example of just keeping it simple. I mean, guys have like literally been rocking it for years.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be complicated. I was reading a bit about them on Wikipedia, and they did experiment with different instruments and which, we need to keep ourselves sharp. Yeah.
ZZ Top.
But simplicity, I think it's so easy for us to overlook simplicity. Yeah, sounds awesome. That's on the HomePod, too. It sounds really good on the speaker.
Sponsored by Apple.
Mm-hmm. So keeping it simple. I think that the renting versus buying, for probably us type personalities, the renting is simple. Like you've always said, if the roof blows off, you call the management company or the owner. The such and such. You got to make sure you're with a good company, but in general.
What else did you learn about who else rents?
Anyone who wants to?
Well, way before you knew that my strategies, I mean, I've owned 2 homes, right? But we owned a home in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. But my strategy, especially after that, when the housing market crashed, was to rent, right? Mm-hmm. And then talking about renting and versus home ownership and that type of stuff. But who also rents? Billionaires, right? So keep going on what you're going. People can look that up if they want.
All right. So, but it's a transition point. It's not just homes that I wanted to talk about, renting versus buying, but business strategy. You and I have been putting together plans about expanding, particularly it's our business in a number of ways, in the sense that you consult.
The online hosting. You're talking about expanding.
It's basically a production company these days. It's creating online herbal education and astrology education. So it's Earth to Stars Productions. Mm-hmm. But how can we? I think, and this is just bringing this up as a subject of conversation. While expanding, how do you keep it simple? How do you manage to keep things simple while you're growing?
Well, you fit more work into the system that you already have developed, right? So you're one person. You have a certain amount of hours per day, right? I wouldn't be able to do what I do daily if I didn't have the technology I have. I started, and younger people won't understand what we're talking about, because when I first started in business working for my dad, he was keeping track of everything on legal pads, and we didn't even have a fax. I mean, that's how early this was. Only big companies had faxes, and then a couple years
machines.
A fax machine. Only a couple years in, we ended up getting a fax, and it was the old thermal paper type fax. So it was on a roll, and it would spit out your fax, and you would tear it off. Mm-hmm. So you could have a 4-foot long page, and you'd have to cut it, right? Mm-hmm. And that was, to have a fax was like having a computer back then. Yeah. You could now receive transmissions, because the companies would literally mail the prints to the shop. So the blueprints, people don't know what blueprints are nowadays because they're not blue anymore. Yeah. So they would mail the prints for the job and the job specifications. You would get it in the mail, right? When we got a fax, you could get prints over fax, but it would just be kind of the faxes weren't very good. Mm-hmm. So it would give you an idea, right?
Let's illustrate that a fax machine, you had to have either a separate phone line, or you had to
an option to send a fax.
An option to send or receive a fax. And if you were trying to use the phone line while a fax was going in and out, you'd hear this horrible noise, or it was busy.
Well, you couldn't. If you picked up the phone line, you would hear it. Yeah.
And so it's transmitting data over the phone line.
Yes.
And a fax machine was basically like a printer that received the information and printed it out.
Yes. It's funny that we even have to think about explaining that. But I spent a couple of years trying to convince my dad, once 5 years in, to get a computer. Mm-hmm. Because computers now were available. Home computer, personal computer, they called them, PC. Mm-hmm. And so it took me about 3 years to convince him to get a computer. And then we could receive email. I mean, that was huge. And so I came around during the technological revolutions of fax machines. Yeah.
No, actually, so instead of having to receive all this written material in the mail and wait how many days?
Right. They would call you. They would say, okay, you got a job coming. Excuse me. We want you to quote it. Mm-hmm. So you'd wait a couple days for the job, mm-hmm. right? Then you would get the prints in the mail. Then you would quote it. Then you would work up your quote and you would mail it back to them. You might call them and say, here's how much I'll do it for. But you would mail back your official quote. And so you waited,
could be a week, easily, minimum.
I get stuff nowadays. I get it on my phone and I can quote it in 15 minutes. And I can be in Brazil and I can quote jobs. And I've done that. I've been in Mexico and quoted jobs. I've been in Brazil and quoted jobs. You could be anywhere on the planet and quote work. So we have a system, and the system is your iPad, your computer, and your phone, right? And because of those things, you can do the work of what I figure you can do the work of 6 people. If you're really good, you can do the work of more. And entrepreneurs do this now all the time. And so you have this system. We use software. We have a system of communication between us. Like if there's decisions you have to make that are becoming very big, we usually talk about it. And even in my business, when I was going to buy $2 million worth of equipment, I didn't just buy it. I sat down and talked to you. I said, here's my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. It took me a year to get things in place. And, a lot of people that know me might think I'm off the cuff. I fly by the seat of my pants. I'm moving so fast. But literally, I was talking about, so when we bought the robo drill and put the 5th axis in it, so I worked on it for 2 years, getting 5th axis machining systems and that kind of stuff in our facility. And because I had the people, so the people are the system, right? In my business, right? Because I have the people that are running the machines, doing that kind of stuff. So I sit down and talk with Alex. I sit down and talk with my top guy, and I say, okay, here's what we want to do. Do you think you can do this? And then we did it with another machine for a year, and we figured out we could do it. And then we started getting, higher level softwares and things like that. And we tried to fit more into the hours that we have. He's here 8 hours a day. So I decided to buy equipment that can run 24 hours a day. And for the last couple weeks, we have been running machines overnight, continuously. And so we're maximizing our system, right? And we have automations, we have email, we have alerts, you have a VIP list in your email, you have smart mailboxes for people, for special people and this type of stuff. And you can capitalize. We have online systems for tracking, communicating with people across the country in your business. And how much can you fit in there? So that's what I say is how much can you fit in your system, right? You have a product and you are a person. If we talk about the way the Prophet talks about it, Marcus Lemonis, right? You have
people, profit, or people, process, and product.
Yeah, people, process, and product. I call it a system. He calls it a process. So what can you fit in your current system or your current process? And does that need to change? Does it need to shift? How do you shift it? Well, with us, we add an extra email and an extra website on your end. With me, I say, okay, we're filled up during the week. We can run the machines all weekend. And at some point, I'm going to have to say I need another machine, or I need another robot pallet changing system. I can get external systems on the machines we have. So if we're running, a total of 60 pallets between 2 machines, we either have to have somebody coming in changing out parts in the pallets, or we have to get another pallet system. We can add another, I don't know what it is, another 80 pallets per machine, something like that. And we could do bigger pallets. So you got to plan your system, and then I say stress your system to the point where it breaks, right? Where all of a sudden things start falling through the cracks, and then you add new components to that system. You might add an online call center for your business that answers questions, help questions. You might add a secretarial kind of person, or you might add a help person. Like you've got 2 people that you're teaching the system, and they live remote. They're not even in our state. And you can communicate online, you can video conference, you can call on the phone. You have things in your system that can trigger. We use an online system, and you can put your information on there, and they get a notification. And when they finish that project, it tells you they're finished. That kind of stuff. So that's how you expand, in my mind.
Yeah.
You know?
While keeping it simple.
Right.
That's not just willy-nilly expanding.
It doesn't increase your overhead at all. I mean, for me to expand, I had to spend $2 million. You have to put another email in place.
Well, put another email in, train someone. Mm-hmm. You know, what I got out of this is good reminders, because the previous, while I was the spoiled white girl at home studying and working on things.
Yes, you were.
The things that I read are coming together now.
Non-stop development.
Absolutely.
You were doing.
I didn't have anything really solid to apply it to yet, but it's coming through now. So like the EOS system, entrepreneurial operating system, I believe it is. And, you know, your reminder of the Marcus Lemonis people, process, and product. We are poised to grow, but what this is reinstilling is that, you know, take the time to, I mean, I have processes, and I'm currently teaching them to a couple of new people who are helping me out, and they're also helping me to actually put it in writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my processes like in my notes, because I'm doing so many things. I have my own checklists to make sure that I'm covering tasks, but as I'm training in these people, I'm having them writing standard operating procedures, manuals, essentially. And I start them out, but they are refining them, because I don't remember everything. You know, they're filling in the blanks in the empty spaces. And so I'm teaching these processes. So while we're poised to grow, what I'm seeing is, what I'm inferring is these processes need to be better established with these new people first, to the point that they're comfortable with them. And then as we're growing, you know, they'll be more ready to handle more, instead of learning and growing, and then it feels like the wheels are constantly ready to come off. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, these people are part-time people, and you know, I've got to see how much more that they can expand in time as well, because there is a crutch, there's a point of, you know, how many people are you training versus how many hours are you getting out of.
And the biggest downfall of an entrepreneur or a self-starter is thinking that other people are going to be that way. So what you have done, and what people should do if they can, is these people technically do not work for you. They're contractors working for themselves.
Yep.
And that means that they are business owners. Yep. And that way they incentivize themselves by bidding on projects and saying the time it's going to take them and that kind of stuff. And then they can look at it from their own mind. It's not just that they're showing up to a job and they got to flip 20 burgers an hour. Mm-hmm. You know, it's that they're saying, okay, I'm going to get $100 to do this. Do I want to do it in 2 hours, or do I want to do it in 15 minutes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if they do that, they can make $400 an hour. Yep. Instead of $100 in 2 hours, $50 an hour. So that's the best way for people to work, is to work for themselves.
Yeah.
So the entrepreneur will fall on their face many, many, many times. I mean, it's hilarious, because I watch these people like, well, you got to fail. Well, how many times you got to fail? Well, you got to just keep failing. And it's like, you're not failing. You're getting feedback. You know, you've seen me many times say, oh, this didn't work, that didn't work. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Why are you doing that? You know, it's really been a learning process. You know, a very good educational process, you watching me do everything I do, because I look at all of it as feedback. You know, I don't mope around like I'm a failure because something didn't work. I just say, oh, okay, I got to adjust this. I got to do that. You know, and I've had companies not pay me. I've had major issues in business, but it's a flow. It's not it's not, I'm going from here to there. You know, I'm out riding my motocross bike in the gravel pit, and I'm just looking for more things to do. I'm looking for more jumps. I'm looking for fun things to try and challenge myself with. You know, that's what business is to me. And I'm ever learning. You know, I'm deciding who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, and you got to do that. You know, it's not just a job. It's not just money. A job is relationship. It's integrity. You know, some companies have no integrity, and I won't work with them. Mm-hmm. You know, there are certain things I won't do. Like, you know, I do work for Aberdeen Proving Ground, U.S. Army. If I won't make missiles, you know, I won't do large collateral damage type weapons. I make handguns. I'll make defensive components all day long. You know, a handgun is nothing but a person making a decision. You know, and it's that person's decision. That's why I won't make missiles, because if somebody launches one at a target and there happens to be civilians too close by, they're all going to get killed.
This is totally supported in the book that I just read, Molecule of More.
Yeah.
And they use the example, the study example of if you're walking along and a trolley car, you know, San Francisco or something, you see a trolley car going haywire, and you can change the train, I guess it's a train, to hit the 5 people it's destined to hit, or if you switch the lever, it will hit one person. I think that's the example. But you have to make this. No, you have to push the person. If you push the person that you're standing next to, you'll kill them by pushing them into the train tracks, but it will prevent the train from killing the 5 people down the track.
I would jump in front of the train. That's a false. That I don't know what they call it.
Let me finish, please.
Sure.
So they expand the example to be, okay, what if you pushed a button? What if, you know, various scenarios, and then what if you were a person who's observing this on a camera, and
yeah, of course,
you know, and so they're removing the personal aspect of it. Is exactly what you're talking about. You know, the handgun is behind a person who's making the conscious decision, as opposed to a mass weapon that is controlled by a person perhaps behind a screen and hitting a button.
I won't answer those questions.
That has no personal contact with that, but people are still affected. You know, like these people that are operating drones from another country and still killing people. They still get to the PTSD and stuff.
That's because the souls of the people visit them. People don't understand what death is. People don't understand what it is to kill somebody. So. Yeah, we can get into that on another podcast.
To be continued.
Yeah. If people understood, there'd be a lot more spirituality / religion. Now, I don't buy into religion, the man-made religion side of things. I buy into the creator side and the omnipresent power, you know, force power that is in our universe that creates. Mm-hmm. But I don't buy into what men say. But I won't. That's like saying prove a negative, right? I won't answer questions like that. You know,
but
if somebody.
I think you already answered the question by your actions.
I did not answer that question.
That question, but you gave a real life choice example.
Yes.
Of that.
Yes.
And
the colonel I talked to was like, I've never had anybody say no to me. He says, I respect you greatly. Mm-hmm. And I told him before that, I said, I respect you guys. We need you. Mm-hmm. I'm not able to make that decision. I'm not able to be that person. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people that know me might think that I'm tough and all that kind of stuff. Like I could pull a trigger. No, I'm not here to kill people. Mm-hmm. That's not my, you know, I did not come into life with that as a mission, as that's not my destiny. That's not I don't have to learn that. I've learned that in multiple other lives. I don't have to do that here this time. So, but no, I'm not answering the question you're talking. I get your example. I'm not stepping on you, but I've been in those situations where people will say that, and I say, I'm not in that situation, so I won't answer that question. Mm-hmm. Because what they're trying to do is those types of questions are programming. That somebody's going to die. Make the choice. Which one? No. I'm not doing a hypothetical. And most people would say, well, why don't you make the missiles? Somebody else obviously made them. You might as well make the money off them. And it's like, no, that's not it. This life is not about money. This life is about what you do to your soul. This life is about how you educate yourself and the things that you become, because you're taking it with you. Mm. The things you do, the things you are, what you become, you take it with you. So, and you'll have spiritual PTSD if you do the wrong things. Mm-hmm. It's everything that happens physically happens spiritually. You don't just disappear and never exist again. You decide that you're going to now have to go back again to relive those lessons to make different choices. Yeah. And so that's a whole different podcast.
Well, bringing it back to a little more mundane aspect of that. That is a tremendously beautiful and deep topic, and maybe that will be a part of your training also.
Oh, well, it always is, yeah. Every time I teach remote viewing and meditation, it is.
So I'm going to bring it back to our relationship.
And martial arts. We teach that in martial arts, too.
And marital arts.
Marital arts.
And so I'm going to bring this up specifically that may seem a bit personal, but I think...
This is going to be a 4-hour podcast.
Well, so you commented earlier about me making money and making decisions based upon that and stuff. So about a month ago, I had agreed that I would buy you a computer for, you help out tremendously in the technology and ideas based upon this production company. Mm-hmm. And so it would be, a bit of payment, a bit of obviously a tool that you would use to help with video, with technology, so many things. Yep. And then some other expenses kept coming up, and you actually forgot to put the order through.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that
it was still sitting in my cart on Apple.
Yeah, and I even told you I didn't see that transaction come through, and you're like, well, maybe it just charges upon shipping. I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then you told me that, and it's like, okay, well, let's hold off because we're doing a road trip to meet with teachers, and I'm quite conservative with money, I would say. And I'm like, well, let's just see how this trip ends up as far as expenses, because we were buying stuff for the trip, to be on the road and Airbnbs and stuff like that. And I want to know, how did it feel to you when I kind of pulled back? I'd already given you the green light about the computer, $5,000 some dollars, not a small amount. Maybe 5,000. Oh, I think it came to 5,000. And then I was like
4,800.
Then I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I got to see, these expenses are adding up for this trip. Yeah. And I'm like, just give me until this week or after the trip, and then we'll reassess.
Well, first of all, I enjoyed the fact that you were willing to do that based upon, me helping with the Institute and all the other stuff that I do for you, for websites with teachers and that kind of stuff. So I'm not at a point where I absolutely need a computer. I have a 15-inch MacBook Pro that is 4 years old now, 3.5 years old.
It's got to be older than that.
Well, something.
Yeah.
But it's functional because I bought the best computer at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So it's extremely functional. And can do everything I need to do. So it's not a need. If it was, I'd just buy it for myself. But it was nice for you to offer that. I didn't have a problem because it didn't get ordered, and we were buying lots of things. Mm-hmm. We're getting ready for a trip. We're getting ready for summer. We're doing things for the Institute with, new video cameras, all that kind of stuff, and it's a lot of expense.
Yes.
And so I wasn't, I'm not a brat about other people's money, right? I respect other people's money. I'm not like, oh, you said you were going to buy it, you got to buy it, that kind of stuff. I don't even have that internally. I look at the situation like we just, I'm not going to say the number, but we just spent quite a bit of money for other things. And since I don't need it, it's not something that I have to have. I would have a lot more feelings if we were making out and then you said you didn't want to have sex. I'd be like, what? Buying me something and sex is probably not the best comparison. However, I'm trying to equate. I thought it was funny when I found out that I hadn't put it through because, like you said, that is odd. Because I thought I clicked purchase. I put your card in, and evidently must not have. Or maybe what it did is it kind of, because it's on the Apple website, I don't know, and it doesn't matter, but maybe it kind of freaked out because it wasn't my Apple card, because it was like, do you want to use Apple Pay? And I went to the credit card thing, and maybe it registered that that's your Apple card, and it's not using my Apple card, so maybe it was, I don't know. And it didn't go through somehow. But anyway, I didn't have like a disappointing feeling. Like I wasn't disappointed that you didn't, you were like, oh, let's hold off. I could see the little bit of uneasiness in you, like, oh shit, now I gotta tell him I just spent all this money. No, but I already knew that, So yeah, I haven't. I like to tease you, so I teased you about it a little bit, and I don't really think about it. I mean, I don't need a computer. Like I said, if I needed one, I'd buy one. If my computer was a slouch, because I can't stand that. So it's, actually I was going to sell my other one to Alex because he wants a Mac that can run the software for programming and stuff. So, and mine could. Yeah. In a couple of years it won't. But yeah. The other thing is too, I'm a little hesitant because they only have the 16-inch now, and the 15-inch is big enough. And I really wish they hadn't gone to a 16-inch. I mean, I could get an older 15-inch, but I think they got rid of the 15. I heard they were having some problems with the newer 15 inches, and then they went to the 16, so they must have fixed whatever issues they were having.
Maybe they were just trying to do so much in a smaller space, and that extra inch gave them
could be
the space they needed.
Yeah. So it's interesting you asked that, but yeah, I'm completely good with everything we're doing. I'm not, me and money. I'm not stomping my feet around and being like, it's either we can or we can't. We do or we don't. It's real simple for me. And then 90% of what I do, it goes in my business. If I need money in my business, it comes out of our personal and goes in the business. That's, that. You've been with me for 20 years. You're like, how come we don't have any money in our personal account? And I'm like, well, I got a couple payments, and then after they're made, then I can grab some money. But, it's a big deal, for the amount of outgo that I have. My business is very capital intensive, so most people might not know that. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
I mean, we have 3 computers up here. It's not like I'm without a computer. And I have a Mac Mini and an iMac downstairs. So there's a lot of things that I could use.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 power PCs that we built. So, I mean, we got a lot of computers.
Well, yeah, if you're counting overall business stuff, yeah.
I could do 98% of what I want to do on my iPad and my phone. So
Yeah. Which are basically our personal, well, not the phone, but like my iPad is more like my personal device.
Yeah.
I mean, I do take business notes on it for convenience, but...
So should we end this and tell people, talk about the spiritual aspect in the next one?
Sure, yeah, if we remember.
All right.
All right, adios.
Audio off. Talk to y'all later.